Hi, I'm Pete Lockett. In this second instalment for Modern Drummer on Indian rhythms, we're going to look at a really interesting concept and something that I was shown quite late on in my Indian studies. It was by an elderly South Indian rhythm scholar, and he devised lots and lots of rhythmic formulas that would work in any time signature. And the way that he did it was quite surprising to me at the time. The key to his whole method was counting backwards. So in the West, obviously, we're used to counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever, where we're counting away from the downbeat. It's kind of, which in a sense doesn't make any logical meaning, because we're counting away from our destination, whereas he came up with the idea that you count towards it. So let's say, for example, you've got a time cycle that's 2 bars of 4/4, so 8 beats. He would count down to the first beat. So he would count 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 8, 7, and so on. Now he would call these new numbers, instead of counting upwards 1, 2, 3, 4, counting downwards 8, 7, 6, 5, he would call the place, the 8th place, the 7th place, the 6th place, and so on. And then from each place he would have X amount of formulas. So for example, let's say we're going to play from our second beat, which is the 7th place, the second of 8 beats in this particular time cycle of 8 beats. Now that is 7 quarter notes, or 14 eighth notes, or 28 16th notes to the destination. It will always be the same. So if you're in 8/8 or 9/8 or 10/8 or 11/8, if you're counting backwards down, say from 11 or 10 or whatever your time cycle is, you'll always have the same distance to go from the 7th place. So then you begin to develop different formulas and different structures that will work in that way from the 7th place. So let's say, for example, we have 28 16th notes. Now the first thing we can do is divide those into 4 groups of 7. We're going to use a basic rhythmic motif for the 7, and it will be ta ti ta ka ta 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 ta. So ta ti ta ki ta ta ti ta ki ta is our basic short motif. Now we'll be counting down 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 8. Ta ti ta ka ta 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 downbeat. So that's the first basic form within this structure that we're going to look at. So let's look at it first of all in 4/4. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, downbeat. I'm playing it on the bongos here, but really it's designed for drum set or for any particular percussion instrument. Really what we're looking at is the formulas that can be applied to any instrument. Now, as I mentioned, obviously this can be done in any time cycle. So let's look at it in 9. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Downbeat. And now let's try it in 11. 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Downbeat. So let's go back to 4/4 and we'll change the configuration. So at the moment we've got 7, 7, 7, 7 making up the 28. So let's change that. Let's have 9, 9, 5, 5. Now this is a very Indian way of putting different rhythms together, putting little modular bits together like a jigsaw to make up the actual time cycle. And it's one of the reasons that a lot of Indian percussionists and Indian musicians find it easier to play in odd time cycles, because even when they're in even time cycles, they're putting odd units together and coming up with different constructions. So our 9 beat will be ta ti ta ti ki ta tum, ta ti ta ti ki ta tum, and our 5 will be dim ta ki ta, dim ta ki ta. So the whole thing, ta ti ta ti ki ta tum, ta ti ta ti ki ta tum, dim ta ki ta, dim ta ki ta ta. Here it is with the counting. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8. Ta ti ta ti get the tum ta ti ta ti get the tum dim ta get the dim ta get the da. Here's what it sounds like on the bongos. As I said, it can be played on the kit, so you know, if you find a good voicing for it on the kit, then that's going to be a great way to start working on this material. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Downbeat. Of course, the obvious next thing to do is simply rearrange it. We had 9, 9, 5, 5, so we can now have 9, 5, 5, 9. Ta dim taka takita dim takita dim takita ta dim taka takita da. With the counting: 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8. Ta dim taka takita dim takita dim takita ta dim taka takita da. Let's hear that on the bongos. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Downbeat. In the Modern Drummer article, the next example was orchestrated on the drum set, but I'm going to orchestrate it on the bongos. It's 5-5-9-9 this time, so again we've rearranged it, but instead of having phrases, we're going to fill all the 16th notes with groove. Taka takita taka takita taka dimmi taka takita taka dimmi taka takita da. 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 1. 8 7 6 5 4 3 2 1. 8 taka takita taka takita taka dina taka takita taka dina taka takita da. So here's that orchestrated on the bongos. 8 7 6 5 4 3 2 1. 8 7 6 5 4 3 2 1. Downbeat. It's interesting to see how when these rhythms are played out of their idiom and on different instruments, they kind of stop sounding like idiomatic Indian rhythms and just kind of sound like interesting contemporary groove or contemporary fills. I mean, a lot of this material is really good to have for fills. I mean, particularly if you're working in odd time signatures. The final example involves something called a T-high. Now, a T-high is basically a rhythmic phrase repeated 3 times, calculated so as to end on the first beat. So, for example, in 4/4, a simple phrase played 3 times, ending on the downbeat. So we're going to have a little T-high within our structure here, and it's going to be like this: tati kita tum ta, tati kita tum ta, tati kita tum 1, the downbeat. So before that, to fill out our 28 16th notes, we need a group of 9. Ta, dim, taka, takita. And it will sound like this: 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8, ta, dim, taka, takita, tati, kita, tum, ta, tati, kita, tum, ta, tati, kita, tum, downbeat. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Downbeat. So this is really interesting, this whole formula. If you can have X amount of material from each place memorized, then you've kind of got a sort of go-to reference pool, you know, which works really well improvising in odd time signatures and coming up with new compositional ideas and ideas on drum set. So do pop by my website, petelockett.com. Again, you know, there'll be more stuff on the Modern Drummer website, and there's lots in my book, Indie Rhythms for the Drum Set, on Hudson Music. And don't forget,